Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to make this presentation. As you heard, I'm a member of the class of 1982, and doing this talk gave me a chance to reflect on my years on the Hill. I remember that one of the many special attributes of Eaglebrook School is its ability to help students find their passion, find their interest, and certainly that was true for me. I can still remember Moni Chase's history class. What a very interesting and engaging way to learn history. And here I am almost 40 years later, working for an institution dedicated to preserving and teaching history. So I am dedicated to this place, as is really the entire community where the museum is located. Strawberry Banke Museum is a unique and engaging place. The way we teach history is unique, frankly. There aren't many museums that like us anywhere. And it's for that reason that we discovered a new threat to this institution and to our very mission, that we decided we needed to act and act quickly. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about that threat. But before I do, I wanted to introduce you to Strawberry Banke Museum, so hopefully you could see why I think it's one of the most unique museums in America. Strawberry Banke Museum is located on a 9-acre campus in downtown Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and close to the banks of the Piscataqua River. We have 37 historic homes, most of which are on their original foundations, and that's one of the things that makes us unique. We haven't created a neighborhood to teach history. We're using an existing neighborhood to teach history, and we show you how it's evolved over almost 350 years. And we do teach 300 plus years of history, and that's another thing that makes us unique in the museum world. When we're not teaching history, we're trying to be a place to gather. That's one of our strategic frameworks. We want people to come to our site for any number of reasons. If it's not to tour the museum, it might be to come to an event, or it might be walk your dog, or it might be who knows what. But we want you to have an experience, and we want you to believe that Strawberry Banke is crucial to this community and to the people that we teach. Now, the museum closes at one point at the end of December, and we open up an outdoor skating rink. This has been around for about 5 years. Last year, it welcomed 23,000 skaters in just 3 months. So you see, we really are a place to gather. We're not just about teaching history. We want you to have an exciting and engaging time, no matter why you come to our museum. And I think that's one of the reasons we are special, and one of the reasons that we need to solve the problems that I'm about to show you. So we do signature events. It's one of our big items. In fact, it starts today with our heritage baby animal exhibit under a large tent on the green in the museum, celebrating 300 years of the heirloom breed animals. We'll welcome several thousand people to see the baby animals this spring. And it culminates in December with our candlelight stroll. The candlelight stroll has been around for almost 40 years and has welcomed up to 10,000 people at our site in just 3 weekends in December. But our real core mission is teaching. We want to teach history, and we want to teach history in an engaging way and to as many people as we can. Fortunately, schools keep coming back over and over and over again because we do a very good job at it. Last year alone, we had 12,000 school children visit our site. All this brings pretty good success. The numbers are really, really good. But our proudest number is our overall attendance, which in 2017 broke 100,000 people for the first time, and we did it again in 2018. And that's something we're really, really proud of. But all of this is at risk. What's the risk? In a word, it's water. Water is simply everywhere. It is attacking our houses from the surface, and it's attacking our houses from underneath in the form of groundwater. Groundwater that's being pushed by increased sea level rise, by storm surge, and by astronomically high tides. Water is so damaging to our houses. It's damaging for a new house. Imagine for a house that's over 250 years old. The surface water is what you see when you look out your window. It's ponding against the houses at Strawberry Banke, rotting wood members. It finds its way into the basement at times. And then there's groundwater bubbling up from underneath. It's incredibly damaging. We're seeing accelerated damage to the foundations at the houses, the chimney supports, the bricks and the mortar, wood rot, obviously. Metal posts that we put in place to support the buildings are no longer able to do that because they've rusted. And it's not just the water, but it's the relative humidity that migrates up from that water. Goes up into the basement, the first floor, the second floor, causes mold and mildew, insect damage, And it hurts not only the buildings, but the objects that we have in the decorative arts collection that we use to teach history in those houses. Our big concern is groundwater. Groundwater is the real culprit. The 1795 Shapley Atrisco house sits 450 feet away from the banks of the Piscataqua River. It's one of our most important houses. It teaches that change over time theme that I mentioned, and it also has some rental units bringing in needed income. Now, for hundreds of years, this house has sat on that site, and it has not been affected by the tide cycles in the Piscataqua River. Comes and goes twice a day, typically reaching a height of about 8 feet. That's fine. No impact whatsoever to the houses at Strawberry Banke. But of late, because of storm surges, astronomically high tides or king tides, and of course sea level rise, those levels are now reaching over 10 feet. It's when that happens that we're seeing water introduced into the basement of the Shapley Atrisco house and 4 of the other buildings at Strawberry Banke, including the oldest one, which dates from 1695. When we took a time-lapse video in December of 2017, we witnessed 16 inches of salt water come into that basement in just 2 hours. When I came back a month later during a storm and an astronomically high tide, I measured 26 inches of salt water in that basement. As you can imagine, these houses can't take that kind of impact. It's just devastating. It's causing rapid decay, and the museum, who's dedicated to preserving these houses, has a very big job ahead of it. So what did we do? Well, the first thing we knew, we were going to need help. I'm the director of facilities at Strawberry Banke. I have no idea how to take care of an issue like this. So I wrote a letter to the local paper, and I asked for help. I said, please join us at our climate change assessment table. Please join us in understanding the impacts and finding a solution. From this article came an unbelievable spread in Yankee Magazine in March of last year. They were dedicating an issue to the impacts of sea level rise on natural and cultural resources. They chose Strawberry Banke as one of the focus areas. It really helped us get the word out, and it really helped people coming to us, offering help and wanting to join the conversation, either because they're having similar problems or they want to find a solution. Our first partner was the city of Portsmouth. It made a lot of sense. They have been doing a lot of studies about the impacts of sea level rise on city infrastructure. They had been focusing on surface water, and now we brought to the table this groundwater issue. So they've taken a step back, and they're now looking at those impacts as well. Together, we form a great team to figure out a bigger solution, or a macro solution, to the issues impacting the city of Portsmouth. The state of New Hampshire, another obvious partner, concerned about the damage to their infrastructure, and especially the roads. So now they're part of the conversation. Keeping History Above Water is a conference that has been around for 4 years. It's the only national conference that gets museums together to talk about nothing else but the impacts from sea level rise. I was fortunate enough to speak to this at this conference in 2017 with the city of Portsmouth, and it really helped us formulate ideas and solutions for this problem. The American Association of State and Local History has always been around as a sounding board for museums with any number of problems. We Are Still In is fairly new. This is a federal organization that's working in Washington to make sure that politicians understand that our history is at risk. You have to remember that this country was born on the coast. We needed the water for transportation and for food. So the oldest parts of our country are on the coast and most susceptible to this problem. And on it goes. Hundreds of organizations reaching out to us and other institutions offering to help. Private companies, engineering firms, architect firms, all working to solve this problem. It's really encouraging. I've been most impressed by the private sector who's chosen to find examples of problems in museums and other organizations that they can help us. So then we have to ask how you can help. What can you do to help Strawberry Banke and any number of organizations that are under this threat? Well, first remember these words by Ban Ki-moon and Francis Suarez from the New York Times last February. Effective adaptation, an effective solution is going to be a holistic long-term approach. It's got to involve all of us. And it should involve all of us when you consider that not a single aspect of our daily lives isn't affected by climate change. And if you don't believe that, I ask you to wait. because I can promise you it will happen. And I can promise you that 30 years ago at Strawberry Banke Museum, we never, ever thought we would be dealing with these issues that we are today. So I'm merely asking you to evolve. Well, what's that mean? In February, I gave a talk like this, and the first question after I was done was, what can I do to help? And working for a not-for-profit, I had to give the typical answer was, well, we need money. But I traveled to the Galapagos Islands in March, and I realized there's a much deeper answer to that. And the Galapagos Islands is a unique place that's having to balance nature with human existence. It is nature that's bringing the tourism industry to the Galapagos Islands. But it's the tourists that can damage that nature. They have to find a balance. In 1998, the government of the Galapagos passed very strict regulations on the fishermen, who for hundreds of years have been using nets to catch their fish, and more fish to feed the hungry tourists. That's not sustainable. So the government said, you're going to use single lines from now on. Obviously, the fishermen were mad. But they needed to evolve. You can't overcatch and sustain the fish population. The fishermen learned that the tourists were very interested in seeing the fish, not necessarily eating them. And so the fishermen evolved and are now part of the tourist industry. More recently, the Galapagos Islands is finding it hard to recycle their glass. They just can't find a market for it. So, with all this glass that the tourists are generating, they're making glassware. And they're using it in the hotels, the bed and breakfasts, on the cruise ships. Even some of the artisans are decorating them with an etched decoration so they can be sold as souvenirs. They evolved. So I'm asking you to please evolve your decision making. Think about what you do in your everyday lives, and rather than just think about how much it costs, how easy it is, what's it doing to the planet? Is it good for the planet? Is it bad for the planet? And try to find that balance. Because I have to say, the alternative is, well, perhaps not the best. Thank you very much.